Ladies and gentlemen, I give you advanced formula Gary Kroger.
That's what you came up with?
You know why I
Advanced
came up with
formula?
that? Because I
No.
just, so like I do before every show, I cleanse myself up. You know, I shower, I shave,
Okay, so you have an advanced formula hair
everything. I
shampoo.
noticed,
Everything.
no. I noticed that my contact lens stuff is advanced formula.
Uh-huh.
My shampoo is advanced formula. My shaving cream is
Is an
my
advanced formula.
toothpaste. I have advanced formula.
Advanced formula. What what
I
what do you
noticed that
think?
there's nothing that I don't have that is not advanced formula.
What do you think the advanced formula is?
I don't care. What I want to know is how far advanced is it? In other words, if it's been advanced, if this is the advanced formula they put
R-
on in 1975, I
Right,
would
it's no
suggest
longer
it's no
advanced.
longer advanced. I would
Right.
say that they should put advanced formula 2005
Or whatever it is.
or whatever it is.
And is it the same formula, or does each one of these products have a different formula to advance? So in
I
other words,
haven't
what's
gotten
the
that far.
criteria?
I just got out of the shower, Gary.
All right. Well, you know what we
That's
haven't done? I haven't
what.
said welcome to the Gary and Kenny show. I am Advanced Formula Gary in Waterloo, Iowa, and the old Formula Kenny
Yes,
in
I know.
Calabasas, California. How are
It
you,
is
Kenneth? I
true.
haven't talked to you since before the SNL reunion.
Well, I guess, let's go. Is the thing about now that we're going to talk about the picture,
The picture,
the picture,
right?
the picture that has gone has probably been seen by millions of people all over the globe.
I'm certain that Paul McCartney has seen it
Right.
and Lorne Michaels have seen it.
And it's in one, I would imagine that of the millions and millions and millions of people that have looked at this, a good majority, probably 99% have said, "Who's that
Who,
guy?
who's the guy with the red tie?
Who's the guy?"
Absolutely.
Between Lorne Michaels and Paul McCartney.
And a completely different response from both of them. I mean, Paul was basically looking forward, but Lorne Michaels does not look happy. I should have gone in for Lorne's handshake. I should have taken the cue there and see what happens. Well, do you want the story
Yeah, of course. That's why you're here,
of
Gary.
the picture? That's why I'm here. Well, you know, I went to the 25th reunion, and we can talk about it,
No,
but I've
you went to
also
the
talked
50th.
about
Did you just say
what
the
I
20?
call.
You said the
Oh my
25th?
God. I went to the Advanced Formula reunion. So it's the 50th. Right. I went to the 50th. I did go to the 25,
Yes.
and I went to the 40th, and I went to the 50th. Each party gets bigger and bigger and bigger. I mean, literally, it would be easier to list who wasn't there than who was.
Right.
I can't think of a star that wasn't there. I mean,
Well, there were a couple that they pointed out the next day that,
Dan Aykroyd wasn't
and that,
there. Dana Carvey wasn't there, but they all had reasons.
right,
Bill Hader wasn't there.
right, go
But
ahead.
I mean, I'm talking about getting in, and I'm seeing my friends. There's Piscopo, Brad, and Julia. Tim Kazurinsky, I more or less went there with. But there's Chris Pine. Keegan Michael Key came up to me and said the nicest things. There's
Tell us
Whoopi
what
Gold.
he said because I've read what he said. So tell people what I said because it's quite a thing.
It really is, and I just don't want it ever to seem like false modesty. I am genuinely floored. But somebody said to me this. In fact, Keegan said this. The Saturday Night Live cast that's your cast is the one on TV when you're 11 years old.
Right,
And
right.
he's right. And to Keegan, he was 11 when I did the Ira Needleman sketch. And he
Okay.
said to me, and I'm misquoting him, I'm sure, but basically he said to me, I saw that and I realized that there can be sexual innuendo in comedy. That sort of set the bar for him to how far you can go with innuendo. Because it was all,
You got him a little turned on as a little 11-year-old.
I didn't go there,
Yeah.
but I think it just widened his parameters of what's funny.
Right.
But more importantly, he said it was the Superman sketch. And I don't know if you remember it. I'm auditioning for Superman with Christopher Reeves.
Hmm.
And Richard Donner, played by Jim Belushi, fires a bullet at each one of them. Of course, Chris catches it in his teeth. He fires it
Right.
at me, and and I'm murdered. I'm killed.
Right.
I fly into a bunch of folding chairs, metal
Yeah.
folding chairs, and it made a lot of noise. Well, it got a big laugh. And Keegan Michael Key said to me, that set the bar for him for what physical comedy is. Gary Kroger is the physical comedian. And this is what he said. And this is what I loved. When Jim Carrey came on the scene years later, he compared Jim to me.
Hmm.
I was the physical comedian, and he thought to himself, oh, there's another guy doing the physical comedy that Kroger does. Well,
Wow.
that made my whole career worthwhile.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think it's sensational. And again, it goes down to those things that, we're always down on ourselves, and then somebody comes in and says, you actually had a great impact. I've had
Yeah,
directors
of
come
course
up to
they
me
have.
who used to work for me as associate directors or whatever, and the person Sarah De La O, who directs The View. I mean, now she's been doing it for years. She does an unbelievable job. But when she told me, she says, the only reason I'm a director and that I'm doing is I've learned everything from you. And I was like, wow.
Well,
It
because
never even occurred to me.
right. We're so busy being in the business and looking after our careers and getting the work done, it almost doesn't occur to us that people are watching. People
Yeah.
might be inspired. And so
Right.
that was the defining moment for me. But I go up the stairs, there's Tom Hanks and Rita Wilson. They're joined by Alec Baldwin. I go into the bathroom, there's Steve Guttenberg, who was for some reason always standing outside the men's room. And Woody Harrelson's coming out, and I go in, and there's Kevin Costner finishing up.
Right, 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 right.
And later, I go to the bathroom following um, Peter Dinklage because we were both
Oh,
looking for the men's room,
wow, wow.
and I'm standing next to Keith Richards, who's
Yes.
peeing next to me.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So ask the obvious question: did I look? Isn't that
Okay.
a
Yes, did you?
yes? I looked, but I didn't see anything. So it's
But
not much
how,
of a story. But of course,
in
you
person, how
look.
decrepit does he look? Is it
He looks exactly like you thought he'd look. He doesn't look
okay?
any different than every picture,
Right, but
which,
in every picture you see, so they always make the joke about him that he looks like
yeah, he
death.
looks exactly like that.
Right,
No
yeah, yeah.
less, no more. But I did say to him after we washed hands, I said, hey, I just want to shake your hand.
Right,
And he
right.
couldn't have been more cordial. He couldn't have been friendlier. It blew me away. I don't expect
So did you
an
go up?
icon like
So
that.
who did you go up to and just like say, I just have to introduce myself?
Well, really, Keith Richards was the only person. I did to Paul McCartney 10 years ago.
Oh, okay, okay.
But basically, look, I'm used to seeing a bunch of celebrities. You are too. It's not that big a deal, and they're all
No,
having
I'm
a party.
still. It's a big deal to me. It
Well,
is.
yeah, I guess I'm okay. That is falsely modest of me. It is a big deal, but
But
it was sort
mostly
of
what
overkill.
I think of is because my mother was a big, I guess, followed a lot of celebrities, and
Yeah,
she was always enamored by celebrities. And so when I'm in a room with somebody who I know that my mother like
yeah,
couldn't believe, and I think to myself, if my mother knew I was in the same room with Frank Sinatra,
yeah,
whew, she would be like blown away. Those are
yeah,
the kind of things that hit me.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the picture. So I knew I wasn't going to be involved in the show. I've never been included in anything. At best, I get to be on a bumper with a cast picture. But this didn't have anything. I mean, I think I was in the background in the montage of inappropriate bits. I did Julio Iglesias where I had a little bit tan makeup on, and you'd have to put that into the realm of things you wouldn't do now.
Yes.
And I saw a snippet of that, but no attention was called to it. But I wasn't
Hmm.
in the show. But I did wear a tuxedo with a black and red tie. And it was a black tie. You'll notice everybody has a black tie, but not Gary. The only reason I did that was, hey, maybe I'll get on stage and my wife will look for the red tie.
Wow,
So
that was
that,
very considerate of you.
yeah, that was the entire thinking of it. Is like my kids will say, oh, dad was there in the background. So I get on stage and there was nobody there really yet except Marty Short. And he was going to do the good nights and he was
Right,
standing center stage and I hadn't seen him yet. And I know Marty very well. So I said, hey, Marty. And then
right.
I'm looking in the audience for Brad Hall, who was right in front of me because he wasn't going to come down. Brad has expressed that he's not crazy about the SNL experience and he sort of wiped it out. But
Right.
this time he was there with Julia and I coaxed him onto the stage.
Mhm.
Well, the red light came on. Suddenly, Paul McCartney was to my left next to Marty, and there's Lorne Michaels. And I said, why would I move? I'm going to stay right here. I mean, why would I get out of the way? The light's on. Everybody can see me. My kids see me, my friends, my wife, Kenny, and I stayed there. But I didn't think anything of it. I thought I'm still just a member of all of these people.
Right.
I get to the after party and my phone from you and everybody
Yes.
is blowing
Yes.
up. Kroger, you were all over the good nights. And it doesn't end there. I get up and I'm in the cover of the New York Times. That picture.
That's right. That picture was in the New York Times. That's right.
It was in the New York Times. And then my hometown paper, the Des Moines Register, which is no small paper. Wait, not the picture, but this is that's a close up from the picture. I'm all over. I'm getting calls from NPR to talk about the picture.
The picture.
My wife is going to blow it up for my birthday and frame it in
Yeah.
the picture.
That is so great, Gary.
Yeah.
You deserved
And
it.
well,
You
here's
just
the funny thing. People watching the show aren't really going, well, he was in this sketch and it. No, they saw me in the show and they said, great job in the show.
right, right, right,
Right?
right.
I mean, people
Well,
aren't, they don't keep scorecards the way we do. It's like, there I was. I was in the cat. My kids were so proud of me.
I was like showing everybody.
You,
It was
you, you blew up on this thing. Yeah, yeah. You said you screamed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, there it is. That's the
That was
picture.
great. I was very proud of you. That was great. Wow. Well, that's good. Any other? I mean, the picture that kind of is the topper, but I'm just asking anything else that was memorable from the evening?
Well, yeah, that and Keegan Michael Key were the memorable things for me. But
Right,
that and the fact that I spent time with Julia because she's been so busy for 40 years. I've barely seen her. And I
right.
went to their apartment and had breakfast with Brad and saw Julia. And I spent a lot of time with Tim Kazurinsky. I saw Robin Duke,
Julia
who I
know that
don't
you
get
do
to
this
see.
podcast?
Do they what?
Does Julia know that you do the podcast?
Yeah.
Did
She
you
doesn't
talk
do
about her
podcast.
podcast?
Yes, I complimented her on it. Her
Oh,
podcast
okay.
is
Yeah, yeah.
fantastic. But
And
I did, Kenny, plug our podcast all over the place. So I would be
okay, good.
surprised if we don't see a little bump in our ratings here
Well, I
because
could use a bump.
yeah, everybody knows. They talk about the podcast.
Well, that's fantastic. That's
Joe
fantastic.
loved the show
Who
that
does?
he Joe Piscopo. He brought up the podcast.
Oh, okay, good, 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 good. Yeah, no, that was good. Yeah, and I was actually hoping to say, yeah, I got all these people lined up, but so hopefully
Here's the tough
we'll
part,
get
and
something.
especially for me, because I'm not good at it anyway. These shows don't have a lot of people going around soliciting their podcasts or anything, or even taking pictures.
Yeah, no, I
Good
imagine
friends
it's
and stuff.
totally inappropriate.
And I
Which
didn't want to be the creepy guy.
I agree with you 1,000%. I agree. I agree. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But
I
people are aware of it, so I
everybody,
mean,
but yeah, it's you
Melanie
don't
Hutzel, Siobhan Fallon, they'll do the show, and
right.
they're terrific. I love them both.
That's right.
Um, I sat next to Anthony Michael Hall
Oh wow.
during the show.
Huh. Was there any kind of like thing that was you felt was like in the general discussion? I guess it was just a lot of people going up and hugging and going, "Oh, this is
Yeah.
great." But was there anything that was like talked about at the thing? Was politics a big part of it or
You know, there were so many people. Basically, the after party takes over the Plaza Hotel, all three
right, right.
levels. And it was so crowded. I mean, there's J.J. Abrams. They're all having
Yeah,
conversations,
yeah.
but I think it was all showbiz related.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
I met Hugh. I've known Hugh Fink from doing comics with
Right,
Mike.
I love
Hugh and
you.
I reconnected,
That's
and
great.
and
He's
I'd
my
love to have Hugh do the show because he's fantastic, and
he's
he will.
fantastic. He will. He's
Certain
one of
of
my
it.
favorite. One of my
I
favorite.
love Hugh, and
Yeah,
so Hugh and I connected, and we talked politics.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Basically, you're in a group of people that I think like we do for the most part. Like, what the fuck?
Well, okay, I will say this because I'd watched the show with my son-in-law, who's 36 or 37, and he didn't like it.
The
I'm just talking
show.
about the sketch show.
Yeah.
And and I actually thought the opening sketch was the weakest. I thought the show got stronger as it went
The
along.
opening sketch being what? Steve Martin's monologue or what?
I think it was Lawrence Welk introducing Robert Goulet,
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
and that lost all everybody I know. Nobody,
It, it,
my son-in-law didn't have a clue who Lawrence Welk was or Robert Goulet.
it, um,
And
I
that,
felt in the studio it went on too long. It was just okay. Will Ferrell is watchable. Kristen Wiig is watchable no matter what they do. But I thought it was just a sketch about that weird relationship more than it was a sketch about
yeah.
anything.
So that I thought, and I didn't really, what happened with the Tom Hanks thing? And maybe I was just like, they were doing a sketch, they were doing a game show, and all of a sudden he comes out with a great make
Oh, with the
American.
red MAGA hat.
Yeah,
Well, they
what
were
was?
doing Black Jeopardy.
Oh,
Black
okay.
Jeopardy, and I don't remember the joke. And I thought Black Jeopardy, I always think it's pretty funny.
Yeah, it is pretty funny.
But he came out with the MAGA hat, and I understand a lot of MAGA people were really upset with Tom Hanks that he would
Oh, yeah, yeah,
besmirch us this way.
yeah.
Um, when you're watching the show, from my perspective, I don't really give a crap about any of the sketches, sort
Yes,
of. I'm
yes.
just sort of remembering the
Looking
lights and
around.
the cameras and looking at
Yes.
everything. The musical acts I thought were all really well
You
produced. I
see
thought,
Paul
oh,
Schaefer?
oh yeah. Oh yeah, I did see Paul. I saw Paul a few
Okay,
times at the party, and he
okay,
couldn't have been sweeter. And I said
okay.
hi from you. I mean, yeah,
Yeah,
he
yeah.
was really, really nice.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Um, yeah, I mean, listen, it's an impossible task. I mean, there was so much hype on this thing to put what is it, 3 hours of sketches to try to be like perfect. I mean, it's an unbelievable task. So to make the sketch part of it, work all the time, I don't. It's
I'd
insurmountable
rather.
as far as how good it could be.
I don't like the way they've done the last two shows because
They
basically
have
they've
changed it, right? Didn't they used to
yes.
do it differently?
Now they just have current and fairly current cast members recreating popular characters in new sketches. I'm not
Right,
saying the sketches aren't funny,
right.
Steve Higgins does a great job, and I saw Steve and his wife.
Mhm.
Um, they do a great job. The Jeopardies are always fresh and funny, but I liked when they showed highlights of each era, each cast, when there would be a featured thing. And I think the audience at home does too, because they wanted to see the Ebersol years.
I also wanted to see some of the classic stuff that,
Yeah,
bring
the
back.
old stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that
Yeah.
would have been, but again, I think actually that might have been more interesting for a younger audience to see some of the uh, old footage, although I don't know. It's hard for me to know what younger people are interested in and if they're interested at all.
Well, they
But
don't even know who Julia Childs is. But at the same time, I don't think it's necessary to ever know who everyone is. I mean, to me, even if you don't know Robert Goulet, okay, it's a sleazy lounge singer who's full of himself and whatever.
I don't know. I think there's a certain extent of that. It gives it some, reason for
Yeah,
being, reason for.
something to at least anchor it with. But
Yeah.
it's hard because you don't want to think that things can no longer be shown because people don't know who that is. I mean, in 10 years, Paul McCartney might not be a name that the young audience recognizes.
But one of the things that I would say is that I do think it's important that Saturday Night Live be in the forefront as far as trends and culture. It's a
Yes.
young people thing. It's a totally young
Yes.
people show. So I do think it's kind of like, yeah, you have to really, if you're going to attract young people and keep them engaged, you have to be talking about subjects and people
Right.
that they understand.
You're right. The formula is to be edgy, and that's why it leans toward political satire.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, an interesting generational thing is Sabrina Carpenter came out sang with Paul Simon. Paul,
And
I
she
knew.
just
I
from you.
I had no idea who she was. I
Oh,
thought she was terrific. I went up to her on the
yeah.
goodnight, said, "Hey, you were really terrific." And she was so sweet. Was
Oh,
I? Thank you. When I got home, my son and his coworkers in their 20s went wanted to touch me because I was so close to Sabrina Carpenter. I had no idea who she was, but she's
well, but on the reverse
huge.
side, remember when Paul Schaefer was on our show? Paul Schaefer told us that he was at some SNL event and he went up to Sabrina and he
That's right.
introduced himself and
That's
she
right.
was like, I have no idea who you are.
I forgot that that was about Sabrina Carpenter.
That's
But
right.
yes, but she's a huge phenomenon, and that just shows my age because I had no idea. I asked the same person who was all aflutter about Sabrina Carpenter, I said, "Well, what do you think of Paul McCartney?" And she went, "Paul McCartney, Paul McCartney. Who is that again?" And I'm not making this up.
No,
The
I don't.
Beatles. Oh, the Beatles. My mom loves the Beatles. It's generational. But
Well,
I always
and
say,
I'll be curious to see that one day they're going to be talking to their kids and they're going to go, and I met Sabrina Carpenter, and they're going to go, "Who?"
exactly. But I always like, I wasn't around when Lincoln was president, but I've heard of him. It just takes a modicum of interest in the past to at least, to me, this is a totally different subject. The Beatles accomplished as much as any great figure in history,
Right.
maybe more in terms of their influence and the people who know them. That should be the Mount Rushmore of popular culture.
Well, I would
Everybody
like
should know
to
the
do is I would
Beatles.
like to take the picture, going back to the picture of you in between those two people, and do like a Zelig thing and Photoshop you into great historical
I think
moments.
that I think if SNL were clever, they would have called me up this week and said, "Yeah, and do a Zelig thing."
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah.
Because here's the funny thing about Lorne. I talked to him 10 years ago, and that's the only time I've ever talked to him. I called him up because I wanted his PAC to get involved in my campaign, and I tried to sell him on the fact that Iowa uh, can help us keep the House. And I couldn't. He couldn't have been
Mm,
less interested. He was cordial, but basically, no, I'm sorry, Gary, but no.
mm.
Um, but he knew who I was. But I swear he's never said hello. I'm standing next to him. I can't tell if he's pissed off because I'm standing there. I have no idea because he never
Well, yeah,
said a
I'll
word
be
to me.
honest with you. I just think that, first of all, he's got to be 80, right?
80 exactly.
And I do think that, he can't know everybody. He's been through so many faces. I mean, he probably at this point is just, he doesn't want to embarrass himself.
He's 80, but I observe him a lot. I watched him, and he's still pretty connected. He doesn't seem to party. I didn't see him at any function.
Mm.
But he still seems engaged with the show, going up to the actors in between and stuff like that. I mean, I'd love to be on his radar. I am somewhere in his consciousness, but
Well, like I said, and the other thing is, I mean, I don't know him or whatever, but he doesn't seem like he's socially gregarious.
no, he clearly is not.
Right. So I
Clearly
don't,
is not. But
whatever. I wouldn't take any kind of personal umbrage from his not, embracing you.
no, no, and I don't. I don't at all. In fact, I think the picture is so much funnier with him just with this dour look, with his hand
Yeah.
going out,
Yeah.
and me
Yeah.
smiling. I pointed out, I think in an interview that I consciously got as close to Paul's face as I could to see what he smelled like.
And
He smelled like clean soap. He smelled like advanced formula soap,
he is the advanced formula.
or
Yeah.
whether it was his hair product or whatever. He really
Right.
smelled
Yeah.
fresh
Right.
and not like additives or, any sort of chemicals. He's
Natural.
a
You should come out
vegetarian
with
smell.
soap. You should come out with a Paul McCartney soap.
McCartney
Smell
soap.
like Paul. Smell like
Yeah,
Paul. Yeah.
smell
The other,
like Paul.
just out of curiosity, is there something that you or somebody that you said, "Wow, I was surprised how they look, or they were this or whatever," and
Yeah. I don't want to say their name or anybody. I
oh,
was
okay.
surprised at how old everybody looked.
Right, right,
Literally, everybody, when you see
yeah,
them,
yeah,
handsome, dashing movie stars,
yeah.
oh, you're older than I thought.
Wow.
Everybody was old. And then when you think about the older people, and I'll mention people like Bill Murray,
Mhm.
um, yeah, he's old.
Yeah.
I was a little stunned by
And what about
how,
the new cast? Did you meet any of the people
yeah,
from the new?
I made a point to meet all of them. Um, I like them a ton.
Right.
And
Me
they
too.
still have that friendly energy where they don't know who you are. I could be a
Yeah.
major producer and they're happy to meet me. And
Yes.
I met all of them. I can't think of anyone that I didn't meet. Mikey Day, I think, is terrific.
Yeah, me
I
too.
met him outside the men's room too.
Mhm. Boy, you
I
were hanging out.
discovered that's where you hang. Me and Gutenberg hang outside the men's room.
Yeah, I guess. But yeah, wow. Well, that's wonderful, stuff. If you think of anything else, let us know.
How are your sinuses?
Tomorrow I go to the doctor, and he's gonna. Isn't it interesting? Not interesting.
Are
I
you in
was just
trouble?
no. It's just
Did you
that
pick your nose? Did you pick your nose?
I am so sensitive that I am thinking to myself, he's gonna look up there and he's gonna. You picked your nose, didn't you, Kenny?
He's-
I'm going. I've had to. I couldn't stop myself. He goes, well, you're gonna have to keep doing this, and taking that and doing that stuff and stuff like that because if you're not going to help in this process,
If you're not
I
going to be a
can't,
part of the
I can't
solution,
help you. You have to help me help you.
help you.
I'm gonna
What's
go. I'm sorry, doctor. I wish I could help be more helpful.
what's the nose picking moratorium? What did he say? Not for a month or what?
I don't know. So actually, tomorrow will be the first time that I get to go
Be your
back.
nose consultation.
Yeah, and I'm gonna go like this, and he's gonna go, and I'm gonna be thinking to myself, he's gonna know. He's
Well, at least we've got the topic for our next show.
yeah. Wow.
All right, Kenneth. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for viewing or listening and or both to the Gary and Kenny Show. We are on all the popular podcast platforms. We are on DBTV, which is streaming on Roku. We have our own YouTube channel, The Gary and Kenny Show. Great place to see us. Great place to give us a thumbs up. Great place to make comments. So until next time, I am the new and improved advanced formula Gary, and
I'm
you
the
are
old regular.
old regular Kenny.
Yeah.
All right. See
Thanks,
everybody. Thank you.
Good night.